Nasty Metal Production channel here on YouTube. Welcome to, of course, another collections update video, which I haven't done one in quite a while, actually, of course. Reason is, while I was uploading those videos for like Metaltober, that whole time, those were all pre-recorded because I was, throughout the whole month of October, I was actually down in Fresno, doing stuff and visiting, of course, for Halloween and everything. So, of course, since I'm back, since then I've picked up many things, and I've went through about a few different record stores, only most of them being actually 3 places for records or CDs, whatever, and of course whatever I pick up at either Walmart or Target or whatever. So with that, without further ado, let me get in. The first, well, actually, before I get in the showing the stuff I picked up from the 3 aforementioned places that I will be talking about here. I did talk about this in my new wave of British heavy metal segment as a part of Metaltober, as of course was the first Tokyo Blade Down, being the Lemon Records 2-disc reissue. Is anyone can hear me? Anything? I just wanted to make sure if anyone can hear me. I don't want to go on too long. But again, the Lemon Records 2-disc reissue from 2010 for the first Tokyo Blade Down, pretty much featuring the first album basically on disc 1, with disc 2 being all bonus tracks being Death on Main Street, the Madame Guillotine EP, Midnight Rendezvous EP, and the Cave Sessions. Great album, great stuff anyways, both great reissue. I'm not going to show anything on here because I want to show everything else in this one, which is mostly the reason why I'm doing this. So, again, just great reissue from 2010. Great album. Alright, the first place I hit up was FYE, which of course is now closing down in Fresno. So, of course, that news broke up like a day or so before I was gonna leave Fresno. Crazy, but during that time I was down there, I was able to pick up these 2. The main reasons was this, the new release from, of course, Greta Van Fleet, being another anthem of the Peaceful Army. Just wanted to read the spine again. You know, the crazy thing is, this was actually marked down on the day because it was just a day after it was released when I picked this up. Originally it was around 17 or 18 bucks originally, but they marked it down to like 13 or 14 bucks. It is pretty much the same price anywhere else was selling it, so it was rather odd. But I only gave this one listen. It's a good album. I do have the EP from the Fires, and that's good. I know there's mixed people that talk about the sound. There's mixed people love it, or people seem to want to hate it, and everyone wants to go and say, well, they're a Led Zeppelin clone. I'm not here to talk about that. I just think it's just a good 70s retro rock album or so. It's very within that 70s sound. I don't want to go into like a whole thesis of what I think Greta Van Fleet sound like. Don't need to, because it will just take up the whole entire video. Either way, I enjoyed the album. I need to give it more spins, but it's a good album. Decent. I think the best song here is, of course, Lover, Leaver, Taker, Believer, which I remember hearing like a live version of it, when I really got into it. I checked out that live version of this track before they even went and did a recording for this one, for this album, and I loved it. And it's definitely one of the best songs here. Probably definitely the most heavy 70s sounding that they've gotten. So, there you go. Greta Van Fleet with Anthem of the Peaceful Army. And of course, that's also from there, before I left, finally came across a copy of this sound. That's, of course, the Strength of Steel from Anvil. It's, of course, is the 2012 End Records reissue. You don't really need me to say anything about the sound. I think this is a classic sounding Anvil album. Anyone that has said that this is commercial sounding, to me, it just sounds like Anvil. It just sounds like pretty much like Metal on Metal and Forged in Fire. There's, to be quite honest, Anvil, with the album that they had released in 2015, Anvil is Anvil. Anvil is Anvil. They're never really going to change their sound. Then from this album, they didn't do that. Sure, whatever. But musically, it's nowhere different from like Metal on Metal and Forged in Fire or Hard and Heavy. So with that, finally glad to have this album. I think it's a great album. So with that, that was pretty much it that I had gotten from FYE. From there on, I hit up, well, Rasputin Music. So what I picked up from there is this. Give me out the 4 discs here. You know what? This was only a reason because of, from my dad or whatever. He wanted to, I guess, have a copy of this album because of, we didn't have it on CD. But I'm talking about All the Young Dudes from Mott the Hoople. You know, I never listened to this album, the vinyl copy of this album. I only listened to the album Mott from them, which came after this album. And the only reason I wanted to check out most of Mott the Hoople was, one, the song All the Young Dudes was the song that kind of turned me on to the band anyways, because of that song being featured in the Guitar Hero Aerosmith game. And which, of course, if you listen to Mott the Hoople, you can pay attention. You can kind of hear the influence that Mott the Hoople had on Aerosmith's sound. But when I listen to that Mott album, another reason is Mick Rouse, who would go on to form Bad Company with Paul Rogers. And that's one of the reasons why I checked out that Mott album. It was good, but something about it just didn't click with me. So, from years from putting off from ever giving them another chance, I listened to this one finally, and you know what? This is actually a pretty good album. I was actually surprised how much I was actually kind of liking this. In a way, this is probably a much better album than mine anyways, and I think it's actually a pretty good album. There is, of course, the song Ready for Love would end up being reworked with Bad Company. And I actually kind of like this version better than the one that got reworked for the first Bad Company album. It's slightly heavier to some extent. So, again, decent album, good album. Glad to have it on CD, All the Young Dudes. So there's that. Because I want to move along, and I don't know how long this video is going to turn out anyways. Of course, also ended up finally picking up the debut album from Haunt. Of course, Burn into Flame. Of course, me being from Fresno originally, it's just nice that a heavy metal band from Fresno, California made it onto a label. Because for the longest time, I swear, Fresno always took a backseat to other California cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco. So it's real nice. Great album. Really good album from Haunt. This, to me, I think is actually better than the EP. This is just chock full of great riffs, great songs, a lot heavier. The sound is just great, production, everything. This is what a heavy metal album, I think in this today and age, should at least kind of sound. This is a great album. Great debut from Haunt out of Fresno, California. Of course, not to forget to mention that Trevor William Church is the son of Bill Church. So that. Next thing I ended up picking up was, of course, Molly Hatchet's The Deed Is Done, which I did not have this album, so I was kind of glad to finally come across a copy of The Deed Is Done. Released right after No Guts, No Glory. I pretty much have everything from Molly Hatchet except for at the time, except for this one, and the one that came after this, Lightning Strikes Twice, which I'm still looking for a copy. This is a decent album. This was definitely their attempt at trying to jump on that sound that ZZ Top was pretty much riding on with Eliminator, and of course whatever 38 Special was getting popular for. I saw that Molly Hatchet was kind of going for that kind of sound, and to some extent it's not bad. there is some good cuts on here. Good Smokin' Whiskey and Straight Shooter, probably the most Molly Hatchet sounding songs on the album, because they definitely had a lot of the writing. Most of the writing on this album was from other outside people. None were not musicians. They didn't play in any other band, just people that I think the producer brought in. So, even though it's not a bad album, it's definitely not nowhere as good as like No Guts, No Glory, or the classic Molly Hatchet, or even the ones that came after this in the 90s. Especially like the Devil's Canyon and Silent Reign of Heroes. But it's a good album. Glad to have a copy. Very hard to come by, actually, especially on CD. If you go on Amazon, ridiculous amount of money that people ask for. So I got that for about $4 actually used. Last one, I picked it from Raspin. Finally glad to have a copy of this. Been looking for this one for a long time, and thanks to Dissonance Productions, they pretty much went and reissued this. This, of course, is the new wave of British heavy metal band Fist, with the Back with the Vengeance anthology, which that was the original title when Castle Records or Sanctuary had released, and had a much different cover than this one, mostly boasting the original Fist logo that was appeared on Turn the Hell On. But that copy went out of print, and good luck trying to buy a copy of that one. So finally, thanks to Dissonance, they reissued it, and I came across a copy at Raspinen. Great stuff. Definitely that new wave of British heavy metal sound for sure. Of course, it contains the whole entire Back with the Vengeance album, which was released through Neat Records back in 1982, and contains the whole name, rank, and serial number 7-inch, and the song The Wanderer, and then I've got a bunch of unreleased and early versions of raw versions, whatever, of songs that would appear on Turn the Hell On, and some other songs that were recorded right after Back with the Vengeance with Glenn Coates on vocals. So it is a great fucking compilation. You ever definitely recommending getting this disc. It's a fucking great disc, and especially if you like the new wave of British heavy metal, this is the great thing to have. So that's all the stuff that I got from Raspinen. Now it's on to the next record store that I went and hit up, which was titled Freebird Records, which is out in the Tower District down in Fresno, California. And this was actually what was used. So this is the only thing I can at least show, because I didn't take pictures of the record store. But this was the bag that was used. So let's show you what I picked up, and some stuff I actually came out with was pretty surprising. Some of this stuff is not very easy to come by. Was really happy to finally get a copy of this album. And of course is Return of the Vampire, the rare and unreleased album from Merciful Fate, which of course features a lot of demo stuff from prior to the EP, Melissa album, and Don't Break the Oath. And of course contains, I think, one song that they were recorded as Danger Zone, something like that. They were when they were named. Someone once in. I think it was like Danger Zone. I can't remember. I think that was their name. And then, of course, one something that was minor recorded when they were called Brats. That being, I think, You Asked For. I don't know. One of these songs were, because a lot of these songs were also written when they were called Brats. Some of them were written when they were called like Danger Zone, if I remember. Is there any? Doesn't say too much about what band they were called when they did, but still great to have. This, of course, is an original U.S. Copy on Roadrunner, Road Racer. So, got the disc and everything. $17 I think I paid for, but given the fact that how much that people want to ask for at least original copies of this, and of course this being the club BMG Club edition, which nobody ever really ends up selling. If they did, it will be around $50 or $60. So I really scored a great copy of this. A little beat up, but it plays fine. great copy. So, there you go. Return of the Vampire from Merciful Fate. And of course, these two albums, and especially since I found both parts 1 and 2, these are not easy to get these days. That's, of course, is the Neon God Part 1 and Part 2 from Wasp. And found these pretty much, I think, most of the same price we probably will find them, or a little bit more expensive. But to find them at the same time, I couldn't pass up. Never going to come across these ever again, especially if you want to get them off the internet. It's pretty much a needle in the haystack. So, great to have these. Great album. It's pretty much the second concept album for Wasp since the Crimson Idol. And it's very similar to the Crimson Idol. And I actually kind of like this album as well. I think I almost like this one just as much as the Crimson Idol. Just great songs here. The storyline is pretty good. But musically, this is definitely some good stuff from Wasp. So that was, and then of course I ended up picking up an LP, which is the album that's playing in the background, of course, if you couldn't make out who it was. Of course, it's Fastway, with All Fired Up being the follow-up to the self-titled debut. Been trying to find a copy of this album for the longest time, especially mostly on CD, but since trying to get a copy on CD has become a nightmare, I just went and picked up the vinyl copy that was there for $10. Plays great. Decent. The cover is in great shape, actually, considering that this is mostly considered like a party record. So with that, I love this album. The first two Fastway albums are pretty much the two of the probably their best albums, really, especially for Fast Eddie Clarke, of course, of Motorhead, and of course, who sadly passed away this year around January. Yeah, it's been a year now since he's now passed away, and it's just jaw-dropping, actually. But still, glad to have a copy. And the thing is, yeah, it's their best. And the third best, I would say, is probably the Trick or Treat soundtrack, because that's probably the other that I really liked from them. And that was one of the first things I ever heard was, of course, the movie. But these two, you can't go anything wrong with the first two Fastway albums, really. After that, it becomes spotty. You got Waiting for the War, which kind of sucks. So with that, glad to have a copy of this album. So that was it for at least Freebird Records. From there on, picked up the new Ace Frehley from Target, which, good album. Not all the time that I buy something from Ace Frehley, because most of the time I always passed up. Probably because I'm just not the biggest Kiss fan, but even though I do love their material, most of their early stuff, but I decided to get the new album, and it's good. Definitely, of course, when you got Gene Simmons being on, having some writing on the album, it pretty much it has that classic Kiss sound anyways, and that's what I also like about this one. But it seems like no matter what you buy from Ace, you're always going to end up getting something quality, something good. So that, Spaceman, good album from Ace Frehley. The next one up, though, was actually a gift from my brother. And this was definitely when I finally, to round out my Sorcery collection. That's, of course, is the Rocktober Blood soundtrack. Of course, Sorcery mostly contributing with the songs I'm Back, Rainbow Eyes, Kill on the Loose, and Watching You. The rest of it being all stuff for me like Face Down, which is like another female front, even though the vocalist sings on the song Rainbow Eyes, but it's at least the Sorcery band playing in the back and everything, and of course score and everything, and then a hidden track, the CD reissue from 2016 on Lunaris Records, which a sticker came with it actually, but hopefully you can see that better now. Good. Many people seem to look at this as a Sorcery album. And I think that's why this sound ends up getting a bad rap at times. It's a soundtrack to a horror movie. And of course I talked about a bit of a mention in the film last year when I did my Metaltober, mostly heavy metal soundtracks. And this one I talked about for a bit. And that's all that it is. It's a soundtrack with 2 different bands. It's not meant to be a sorcery album, and many people seem to give it shit for some reason. And some had went on far enough to say that it's the worst, up there with, like, what was it? Lulu. Are you fucking kidding me? A soundtrack that was meant to be a soundtrack, and somebody wants to say it's as bad as Lulu? Literally, yeah. People, I swear when they don't want to take the time to look at it and the way that they should be looking at it. It's not supposed to be a band album. It's a soundtrack. A fucking soundtrack. And yet people want to take it as serious as possible. I can't believe it. Anyways, yeah, it's not amazing, but it's a soundtrack. Of course, you get when it comes to soundtracks, things can be hit and miss. So, anyways, glad to have it. Finally rounds out most of the, at least the studio stuff from the band Sorcery, who are from LA. Really sounds such a stunt rock. And of course, the 2, don't knock anything over. Let me put you on the bed. Alright. Finally, when I came, since being back, that's all the stuff at least I picked up down in Fresno. I did pick up something though, yesterday. Okay, so I haven't been back into a Walmart, okay? Not since, having my vacation, or my time off or whatever in Fresno. And the last time I did it was before I went down to Fresno, and most of the time if I went in the Walmart down in Fresno, it was always the same to me, okay? Come back here in town to in here, and hadn't been to a Walmart, or haven't been to this Walmart here in a while. So when I finally did yesterday, to my surprise, they got a vinyl section in now. Yes, this Walmart here in town has a vinyl section now. And so I was like, holy shit. I was surprised. I've been gone for so long, and they now got a vinyl section in. So with that, I picked up a record, and finally went. So I pretty much went and picked up this album on vinyl. This, of course, is the 2017 repress. Of course, Iron Maiden's "The Number of the Beast," and was never planning on getting this album on vinyl, but since they had it there, and that's the only one I'm gonna buy. An album, at least, or rebuy an album on another format, is if I see it in front of me. And that's what I did, because that's the only way I will. And finding original pressings, anyways, of Iron Man albums out in the wild are pretty few and far between. They're really hard to come by, actually. So a reissue is fine by me. And since it's the 2017 BMG Sanctuary pressing, even though it's from 2014. The 2014, I think, was like Inner Groove or something like that. But this is with, of course, Sanctuary, and of course, features the same remastering as the 1998 CD reissues. But overall, glad to finally have at least also a copy of Number of the Beast that goes by its original LP track listing, which does not feature Total Eclipse. Unless you had gotten original Japanese pressing from 1982, which seems to include Total Eclipse. But it seems since then, everything, even including the Japanese LP pressings like 87 or so, just reverted back to the original US and UK track listing. Me, I got a CD copy that has Total Eclipse on there, so I'm fine with having a vinyl copy that sticks to its original US and UK track listing. So again, the back cover and stuff. If I ever get any more Iron Maiden albums me on LP or so, if I end up rounding out that collection, I'll do an Iron Maiden collection video, and I will talk about what's going on. And I will show more of this copy, and so I don't know, there might have been people out there here in YouTube or the vinyl community that showed how this reissue looks like anyway. Either way, finally glad to have None of the Beast on vinyl. So that's about it, 25 minutes in, and of course it's long. So at that, there was a lot of stuff here to show anyway. So until then, hope you enjoyed and everything. If you've ever heard some of these albums, some of these, of course, you probably have. Definitely share your comments and everything. So until then, this is Heavy Thrasher Sam out. Hopefully I'll still keep doing more here on YouTube. So until then, this is Heavy Thrasher Sam out. And I'll see you all again later. Take care, everyone.